19. All three surveys are available at https://survey.5-essentials.org/Illinois, or, it was probably a lot easier, see the link on the district website.
Thank you. The other board members, Mrs. Jackson.
Peoria Public Schools holiday break and office hours. Be funny if I told you they were all canceled, huh? Peoria Public Schools will be on holiday break beginning Friday, December 21st. School will resume for students on Monday, January 7th. Administrative offices will be closed on December 24th, December 25th, and January 1st, but will have normal 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. hours on New Year's Eve, December 31st.
Mr. Walter.
Online Academy. Peoria Public Schools Online Academy will launch in January 2019, and parent meetings are being held on December 12th, December 18th, and January 4th. Online Academy is an exciting opportunity for students throughout Peoria, not only those enrolled in Peoria Public Schools. Through Online Academy, students can take middle and high school classes in a wide variety of math, science, language arts, social studies, and more. The classes are delivered by certified teachers, and students receive the same credit as those in traditional classrooms. Online Academy is ideal for students who wish to work at their own pace, earn high school credits more quickly, who have employment, internship, or travel opportunities or family responsibilities. To learn more about Peoria Public Schools Online Academy, contact Dr. Susan Gersnich, 309-672-6758.
Thank you. Mrs. Ross, sorry.
Remembering Chase White. Peoria Public Schools would like to honor the memory of Chase White, a Deputy U.S. Marshal and manual graduate who was killed in the line of duty in Arizona on November 29th. Chase, a manual alum from the class of 1995, made the school's honor roll his senior year and was also an all-area football player. He was retired from the U.S. Air Force and served as a colonel, lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves. The entire school district extends its condolences to his wife, 4 children, friends, and mother, the Reverend Linda White.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw.
Federal Bar Association sponsors the 2019 Civics Essay Contest. Cyberbullying and the First Amendment. The Federal Bar Association 2019 Civics Essay Contest is open to students in grades 6 through 12. The essays are due on January 22nd, 2019. Middle school essays must be no more than 500 words. High school essays must be no more than 1,000 words. Essays will be evaluated on the student's understanding of constitutional principles, clarity, and effectiveness in communicating, grammar, spelling, and composition, and use of footnotes and bibliographies. Winning students will be awarded cash prizes ranging from $250 to $1,500. For more information, go to www.fedbar.org/civics19.
Thank you. The 45th Annual Young Authors. Peoria Public Schools kindergarten through 8th graders are currently working on their submissions for the 45th Annual Illinois Young Authors Program. Young Authors celebrates the creative work of young writers and artists. Each Peoria Public Schools student is encouraged to participate. Schools must have their top 3 submissions to the district office by Friday, February 8th, 2019. Students entering winning manuscripts will be honored at the Young Authors Conference in May 2019. And the Peoria Public Schools Foundation will host its 4th annual 365 breakfast, January 10th from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. at Woodruff Career and Technical Center. The public is invited to join us as we share what it's like to walk in the boots of a Peoria Public Schools student and what you can do to help. Next on our agenda, we have the Community Contribution Award. I'd like to call Dr. Susan Gersnich forward to award today's recipient.
Good evening, President Adler, Board, Dr. Crott. It's my pleasure to bring to the school board Mrs. Lorraine Bryson for the Community Spirit Award. Mrs. Bryson works closely in support and is a critical friend to Peoria Public Schools on various projects. Currently, she is the Align Peoria, sorry, they changed their name, Align Peoria Vice President and a member of the Align Peoria Reading Tactic Team. As Vice President, her role is to maintain the alignment vision and keep the community connected to the district. As a member of the Reading Tactic Team that is just getting started, I'm sure one of her opportunities will be to find ways to connect good readers, good reading practices to our families. This team is now in the development process. She's also worked with us on grants and was part of the development process for the pre-readiness program. Through the grant process, she's willing to partner for services. I should have worn my glasses, Mr. Adler. Willing to partner for services which benefit entire families, which in turn benefits our school system. In her role as president of the Tri-County Urban League in Peoria, Mrs. Bryson was also a key partner in development of the pre-readiness program. This was an opportunity for us to work with students who had been retained to recover middle school credits in order to move on to high school. Mrs. Bryson saw the benefit of this right away and provided support staff and resources as well as a location for the program. She has a unique background as an educator and a lawyer. She has served on a long list of boards for our community ranging from education, diversity, to economic development and health. Currently, she's on the board of directors for the Illinois Business Financial Services, the U of I Medical School Community Advisory Committee, Bradley University Education and Health Sciences Advisory Committee, and an Illinois Senate-approved member of the Tri-County River Valley Development Authority. I list all those, just a partial list, to point out how connected she is with our community and supporting our families and therefore our students so well. She's an advocate of learning regardless of the student age level. We see this through her adult literacy programs at Urban League as by providing adults also with career counseling and information on how to get financially established and connected to resources. These all benefit our school system. The Urban League would not be the cornerstone that it is without Mrs. Bryson's leadership and vision, and certainly our district is stronger because we have her as a partner. And personally, I have so much respect for Mrs. Bryson, so it is my pleasure to bring her here tonight for the Community Spirit Award.
First of all, I'd just like to thank the board for this award. I'm truly honored to receive it. At the Urban League, we believe that education is the key to success. And so for my entire career, I've always tried to work from being a teacher in Peoria Public Schools, as well as my work at the Urban League, Illinois Central College, to focus on education. My mother, my brother, both retired from Peoria Public Schools, so we're all educators. And I got that early foundation from my grandmother, who was a teacher in Kentucky and Ohio. She started in a one-room schoolhouse, so that tells you how long she was involved in education and lived to be 103 years old. So I have a very strong foundation in education, and I know for myself personally, every time I improved education, more opportunities opened up for me. So if there's anything that we can do at the Urban League to help our Peoria Public School students to make a difference in their lives, we know that we will be paid back tenfold as they become adults. And I'm just proud to get this award and stand on the shoulders of many other stalwart heroes in our community that helped me to be in the position that I'm in. So thank you again.
President Adler, congratulations to Ms. Bryson and board. Actually, I've worked for Ms. Bryson for about 10 years. She's one of my mentors and one of my former bosses. So thank you for all that you've taught me. And as Susan said, just really, she's in tune with her community, and she loves working for kids and families. And I still believe and remember the Urban League's mission of working with disenfranchised individuals to give them a second chance. So that also helped part of my DNA and helped me with my thinking and mindset. So Again, thank you so much, Ms. Bryson, for what you're doing for the kids and
Once an urban leaguer,
Oh.
always an urban leaguer.
correct.
Mrs. Ross?
Yeah. I just want to recognize Mr. Bryson as well. He's hiding behind the masses there.
He always does.
Great supporter of our Urban League and children, from your background all the way through the adults. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Next up, we'll have the Remarkable Spirit Award. Yeah, Coach Booth, would you come forward and present this week's winner?
Absolutely. Good evening, Dr. Kropp, President Adler, and members of the board. I have the pleasure of introducing to you the recipient of this evening's Remarkable Spirit Award. Andrew Brown is one of the most gifted and knowledgeable individuals that I know in providing interventions and therapeutic supports to some of our high-need students here in Peoria Public Schools. Andrew is a member of this year's newly developed Tree Wind Therapeutic district-wide problem-solving team. This team, with the leadership of Principal Renee Andrews and social worker Chris Joseph, provide guidance and consultation throughout the district to implement interventions, supports, and behavior plans for students in their homeschool setting. Andrew is not called upon to only serve students, but to ultimately work with teachers and staff on the implementation of effective interventions to support students who are in need. Andrew wears many hats, and one of those hats is he has led countless staff trainings on topics related to SEL, trauma, de-escalation, interventions, and crisis prevention. The work of Andrew Brown is making a remarkable difference throughout Peoria Public Schools. Andrew?
I actually wasn't prepared to speak, but thank you. I really appreciate this. But this is the work of a lot of people. I'm just a small piece in the machinery, and under Derek's guidance and working closely with some of the other people he's mentioned, Chris Joseph, Renee Andrews, I've just learned a lot over the years. I've been very fortunate. When I started this job, I thought to myself, I'm going to work at District 150 and go to school and figure out what I want to do with my life, and it turns out this is what I want to do with my life. So it's just worked out really well, and we have some challenging kids that have been through a lot, and there's a lot of times in the morning, I've got that alarm set and my body's trained, and now I wake up about a half hour before and I lay there and I meditate and I pray, and some of the most clarity I have comes in those moments of prayer, and that's really important. I think that's helped me at least be the best that I can be. So I just appreciate all the opportunity that you've all given me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Just for the public's awareness, we do have a public hearing tonight on the tax levy at 7 p.m. So when we hit that 7 o'clock mark, we'll try and gracefully drift from wherever we're at on the agenda to that and give the public an opportunity to speak. And then we'll come back to the agenda wherever we left off. All right, so next item up is the student showcase, and I believe Dr. Bell will come forward and help recognize our recipients tonight.
Mr. Adler, while he's doing that, Coach Booth, do we have an award for Mr. Brown? Well, Mr. Brown, we'll make sure you get your award. You definitely deserve it. All right. Oh, here you go. Perfect.
All right.
Okay, here you go.
All
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, good evening. How are you, President Adler and Dr. Karat? It is my honor and privilege to showcase the talent, the student athletes we have on the middle school level. But I got to thinking the other day, there's no way I can read through some of these names. I'm not that good. So what I decided to do is to introduce first the junior varsity basketball champions, those Sterling Jaguars. by having, yeah, by having the principal, Ms. Lane, to come forward along with the Jaguars coach so they can introduce the players and, of course, honor the parents as well. Ms. Lane.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. Good evening. I would like to introduce my coach, Coach Kelly Cook Lyons, to recognize our girls JV students.
Hi there. We appreciate the recognition. Tonight we have Alicia Adams, we have Neve House, and we have Alana Ross as our representatives. Thank you very much. We've got 11 total, so 8 more.
Do we have any parents that came to support their student athletes this evening? Please stand.
Well, parents, stand. There you go. Thank you, parents. All right. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Now for the middle school varsity champions. You know, I always hear them say it's a great day to be a Cougar. Well, it's a great day to be Mr. Barber. Mr. Barber, come on up here.
Thank you, Dr. Bell, President Adler, Superintendent Karat, members of the board. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Miss Marnie Rohr. She's our coach. She's a longtime coach at Rolling Acres and in many different sports. I'm very pleased that we were able to earn the city championship. I've been at Rolling Acres 8 years, and this is our first city championship on the girls' side since I've been there. So
In basketball.
In basketball, that's true. So, Ms. Rohr.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here. We feel very honored. Sorry. And we appreciate this. Congratulations. Like you said, this is our first championship in basketball. The girls worked really hard this year, played hard, worked together, showed good teamwork, good sportsmanship throughout, and really represented Rolling Acres in a good way. They're not only champions on the court, but off the court as well academically. They work really hard, standards are set high, and they rise to the occasion to meet all of the requirements, you know, to play and to represent Rolling Acres, so I'm very proud of them for that. Girls, when I call your name, parents, if you could stand up as well. Lasia Nash. Arish Assad, Heaven Wood, Nyasia Rutherford, she couldn't be here tonight, Jaden Thornhill, Abby Ochoa, Ellie Keys, Alyssa Ross, Alana Ross. They're twins and I still can't tell them apart. It's been 3 years, I still can't tell them apart. Nia Bennett, Kayla Williams, Markayla Lanier, and Rebecca Boyer. And also my assistant coach this year, that she was here and then she moved to Atlanta, and now she came back to help me, Tony Johnson. She's a former student at Rolling Acres, player for me. I've known her since she was 10 years old. Or she was 10 years old, and she's not since I was 10 years old, since she was 10 years old. So she's an intricate part of helping our school and our team be successful as well. So I'd like to thank her as well. Thank you.
Hey, turn around. Hey, pay attention. I feel like I'm in a photo student.
On their way out.
Thank you again, President Adler, Dr. Crop.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. So next we have United Way S3 grant winners. Ms. Jan Leonard, would you come forward?
Oh, Dr. Wood is on.
Nope. Sorry, Dr. Wood.
Okay. Good evening, President Adler, members of the board, Superintendent Karat. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce our next speaker tonight. And she is no stranger to Peoria Public Schools. As a proud graduate of Peoria High, Jan Leonard has served the students and the staff of Peoria Public Schools in a wide variety of roles, and I'm honored to be able to introduce her because when I became a student teacher in Peoria, she was my mentor. Jan has held a wide variety of positions in her 30-plus years as an educator. She's been a teacher, a coach, a truancy court liaison, a professional development consultant, and an adjunct professor at Aurora University. She served Peoria Public Schools through the Peoria County Regional Office of Education and the Illinois State Board of Education as Peoria Public Schools District Improvement Coach for several years and conducted many professional development sessions in our schools. In retirement for the past 6 years, Jan has worked for the Heart of Illinois United Way, leading strategic planning efforts and coordinating their Supporting Student Success initiative. Jan also serves on the board of directors at Quest Charter Academy, Holt Center for Healthy Living, and is on the Education Advisory Board for PNC Bank. In addition, Jan represents United Way on 2 teams for the College and Career Tactic for Align Peoria and serves on our operating board. So she's a little busy in retirement. Tonight we've asked Jan if she would speak to us about the United Way S3 grant, and so she's here to do that for us. And just want to say thank you, Jan, for all of your years of dedication to us and all you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Board President Adler, members of the board, Dr. Karat. Heart of Illinois United Way allocates the vast majority of their campaign dollars to over 46 partner agencies and over 80 programs. However, we have some of our own initiatives. Success by 6, which is an early childhood initiative that focuses on literacy, math, and social emotional well-being. 211, and the program I have the privilege of coordinating, S3, or Supporting Student Success. This is the 6th year for S3, which allocates about $185,000 to schools for social, emotional, and behavioral health. Schools apply for what they think they need: counselors, programs such as those dealing with PBIS, anger management, resilience, goal setting, relationship building, decision making, and Sumalehi's over there, so I better say leadership programs, right? And self-regulation. In their applications, schools provide proposed outcomes and numbers served. I get to visit each school 2 to 3 times a year to see S3 in action, attend PBIS meetings, brief meetings with principals. In addition, schools are required to submit simple mid and end-of-year reports to show their progress towards meeting their proposed outcomes, the numbers served, and their expenditures. In the past 6 years, schools have reported that their S3 efforts, coupled with many wonderful district efforts, have helped to lower the number of discipline referrals, reduce suspensions, and increase overall social emotional well-being. The document that I provided for your board packet shows that over the last 6 years, Peoria Public Schools have received over $700,000. This school year, 13 schools in Peoria Public Schools have received $129,000. Those schools include Franklin Primary, Glen Oak, Harrison, Lincoln, Lindbergh, Dr. Maud Sanders, Peoria High, Quest, Richwoods, Roosevelt, Trewin, my alma mater, Von Steuben, Whittier. I also provided a listing of the schools in your board packet, those that are receiving dollars this year, and the programs and the services that they are implementing. It's a privilege to have Peoria Public Schools in the S3 initiative, and I, of course, would welcome any questions that you have now or any time in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard.
Thank you.
Any questions for her? Thank you. All right, at this time we will move to the public hearing on the tax levy. I now declare the public hearing on the tax levy open. Are any members of the public like to come forward and speak on the tax levy? Mr. Knapp.
Yes, good evening. Every year I come to this podium and I talk about these several things I'm going to talk about in a minute, and I hope you're listening. I sometimes wonder, but I know in the past listening wasn't a feature of the board. I think this board listens better than the last boards. First of all, on tax levy for busing, the Woodruff experience or experiment was colossal. We took 900 high school students from Woodruff who walked to school. You know, Kingman Grade School is less than a mile from Woodruff. They all walked to Woodruff. When I was, Mr. Walter also had the privilege of going to Woodruff. We didn't even know what a bus, I didn't know what the inside of a bus, except for an athletic contest, looked like. We put 900 kids on buses so Glenn Barton could have Quest School. The mayor said we didn't have enough enough kids for 4 high schools. We now have 4 high schools. I think it's terrible that we bus kids. Kids on buses get into more trouble. 65% of all discipline problems occur on buses, either coming to school or going home from school. It used to be said, well, we don't pay for busing. The state pays for busing. The same taxpayers pay for the busing. You know, we don't need more busing. We need less busing. I urge you to examine that closely. Attorney's fees. You know, I talk about this every year. You know, I've been around attorneys for a long time. Why we have attorneys in the suburbs of Chicago is beyond me. The last boards, nobody listens. We pay them mileage to here and back and forth, and we spent outrageous amounts of money. The Charter Oak fiasco, when we spent $160,000 questioning a bunch of little kids just so we could declassify it from a blue ribbon school to a so-so lying school, which was never the fact, but the previous superintendent decided that's what she wanted because she and the principal didn't get along, and that's just the fact. And the attorneys laughed all the way to the bank. You know, they had others. I went up to Ottawa and watched teachers defend themselves. Eventually, you paid one of the teachers $360,000 or $350,000, whatever it was. You know, that's outrageous. We don't need attorneys from out of town. We need to recirculate that money within the city of Peoria, not within the suburbs of Chicago. Forget it. Get some courage and get a new firm in this area, please. Quest School, another fiasco. We paid them $5.2 million last year. We're paying them, I think, $6 million this year, or if not $6 million this year, $6 million next year. $600,000 to $800,000 increase going to these people. I trust this board. I really do. I trust this administration. I do not trust the board at Quest, and I do not trust the administration at Quest. It's been screwed up since the inception. That school is not performing, and you should pull your $6 million back and take those kids and put them into your own school system, which is much better than the Quest experience. I'm sorry. I've watched that. I've observed it. You know, I have a personal interest in that all the way since they closed Woodruff, where I grew up in the North End and my kids went to school at Woodruff. The last thing I'd like to say is the study of administrative staff, which I mentioned at the last board meeting. In 1960, we had 27,000 students. Today, we have 13,500 students in District 150, half as many. I am convinced that we have too many central administrators in this district. We are paying too many people, too many positions, too many high salaries, and too many benefit packages. You should look at that. The Board of Education should look at that. Due to the taxpayers in this city being overwhelmed, as I said, 51,000 fewer people in Peoria today than there was in 1960. 51,000 fewer people carrying the burden for this city tax-wise. And everybody wants a new tax. They want a new fee, you know, a yard fee. I get to pay a yard fee next year. I really feel privileged as my house value goes down. You know, please do what you've been doing. Get better. This board has done a better job. This administration has done a better job. But we need to continue to get better and save the taxpayers benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other members of the public like to address the public hearing on the tax levy? Seeing none, I now call this public hearing on the tax levy to be closed. Back to awards and recognition. Dr. Crott, I believe most improved attendance.
Thank you, President Adler. As it is our custom, this time we are going to recognize our most improved schools for the month of November. There were 3 schools that rose up to the top, but before we do that, I would like to congratulate our schools that are what we call the November 95% club. These schools for the month of November have seen 95% attendance rate or higher for the entire month of November. And the schools are Lindbergh Middle School, Washington Gifted Middle School, Charter Oak Primary School, Keller Primary School, and Northmore Primary School. So that's really an amazing accomplishment. So let's give those schools a round of applause. And I see that Mrs. Malahi is here. So is she, or did she leave?
Yep, she's right there.
Congratulations. So we have 3 schools. Peoria High took 3rd place, and 2nd place Lindbergh, and 1st place Manual. So what I would like to do is call up Peoria High, Lindbergh, and Manual. Dr. Coleman, can you please come up, and then Mrs. Malahi and Mrs. Zilkowski, and again, congratulations, and just give us maybe 1 or 2 liners regarding strategies and tactics to get your attendance up. And Mrs. Z, I'll bring out the bragging banner to you in a few minutes. You get bragging rights for the month of November as it relates to having the best attendance. Dr. Coleman?
President Adler, school board members, Superintendent Karat, special wink to Student Board Member Johnson. I have my coat on because I have my sweater on, my ugly Christmas sweater, and so I didn't really want to highlight that. But just want to say thank you for this recognition. As you all know, last year Peoria High was repping every month. We've met a few struggles, but we're working hard. We're getting there. November was our no excuse November. We brought back the hot chips for November, so it obviously worked. So everyone was there on time. They're here on time. So hopefully we'll be back and in first place, and we'll continue our trend. Thank you.
To the board and administration, we thank you as well. At Lindbergh, we have our attendance buddies, which have been going strong this year, where teachers meet with students on a regular basis, trying to encourage that attendance. We've also started posting the average daily attendance by day. I have several students who anxiously await at their cafeteria tables, waiting to see what the 100th place value will be, up or down, and they celebrate, and so we do have a lot of fun with it, and we include it in our parent announcements. So again, thank you for the recognition.
Good evening. I'm very, very pleased with our improvement. We've been working the plan, we've been working with our students, mentoring them, meeting with small groups and working in advisory to kind of raise that attendance. It's not exactly where we want it to be, but it is moving in the right direction. So that makes us well pleased.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Put it in her face.
All right, thank you. All right, so next up we have a district presentation. Dr. Crott. While we transition, for anyone that doesn't know, Mr. Brook here is our new communications director, formerly of the Journal-Star, and we're very happy and excited to have him support us here at the district. So, welcome, Mr. Brook.
Thank you, President Adler and Board. It is my pleasure to present really, I hope, a fun presentation, an exciting presentation to you. And every one of you should have a copy in front of you, and so you could either follow on the screen or you could just go through your packet, right, that's right in front of you. I'm going to entitle this A New Vision for Peoria Public Schools, moving from the industrial to the innovation area. And if not all, I would say the majority of us in this room and hopefully our audience would agree that our system of education is badly broken, and that's actually coming from a Harvard report, Pathway to Prosperity, by Harvard Graduate School of 2017. They said exactly the American system, education system, is badly broken and needs to be addressed aggressively and boldly. Based on my experiences over the years in Peoria Public Schools, I know that our teachers, our administrators, and all of our staff, they're dedicated to Peoria Public Schools' vision, despite, I would say, the meager outcomes of an obsolete educational framework. So I just want to show you, you've seen this before, but it's really interesting when we look at where we are and what we've accomplished over the, let's say, over the last 7, 8 years. And we can, yep, so in your packet, I've actually broken it down. If we look at, I started with 2012. And at that time, the state used what they call AYP, or annual yearly progress designations. And during that year, we had 6 schools that were not in some type of improvement status. All the other schools had some sort of designation, whether it's, you'll see either it was a yellow or a red, academic yearly 1-in or academic 1-in status. So the schools that were not in some type of status, and they were what I would say commendable at the time, they were Charter Oak and Hines and Northmore and Washington Gifted and Franklin, Keller, and Calvin Coolidge. So just some historical perspective, that's essentially what I'm doing. And then, of course, the state, things are always moving and changing. And so for the years 2013 to 2017, we had 17 schools that were not in some type of statewide systems of support status. And during that time frame, they literally just had what I would say 2 categories. It was either you're a priority school or you're a focus school.
and priority meaning 5%, in the 5% or below in terms of achievement, and focused 20%, whether it's all school or by subgroups. So the schools that were, again, that were not in some type of system-wide, statewide system of support were Charter Oak, Franklin, Hines, Keller, Northmore, Maud Sanders, and Thomas Jefferson primary schools, and middle schools, Calvin Coolidge, Lindbergh, Mark Bills, Rolling Acres, Sterling, Von Steuben. And then for high school, Richwoods, they were fine. Special schools, Lincoln, K-8, Roosevelt Magnets, and Washington Gifted. And then we've crept up to 2018, 2019, and we have a new law which replaced the No Child Left Behind law, which replaced the Elementary and Secondary Act. It's about, 50 years old. And so there are also new designations. So I kind of wanted to share those designations with you. There are 4 designations, exemplary being the best, then commendable, underperforming, and lowest performing. So, so currently, according to the report card came out in October, it always comes out in October, like the last day of October. We received our information, and we have 10 schools that are rated as commendable. And you can see in your packets or on the screen when we break it down by tiers: primary schools, Charter Oak, Hines, Keller, Maud Sanders, Northmore are all considered commendable. The middle schools that are considered commendable, Lindbergh and Von Steuben, and high school, Richwoods, and special school, Washington Gifted. And I also wanted to share with you the 6 schools that were rated as underperforming, and those are, if you look at that one sheeter that I provided, the color-coded, it's blue, and those are 20%, in the 20% category. Thomas Jefferson and Whittier, and some people might find that those to be very interesting because they're usually commendable, but when they disaggregate the student population, I believe Thomas Jefferson's IEP subgroup sort of got them in the underperforming group, and Whittier's African American group, and so I know those principals are working very hard providing additional supports for those subgroups. And again, the blue groups, middle school, which is also what we call underperforming, or the state does anyway, Mark Bills, Rolling Acres, and Sterling, and Harrison. And it's good to see Harrison have made some improvement. They were red. Previously, they were in the academic warning category, so it's nice to see that they've moved up to the underperforming, the blue category. And then the final category is lowest performing, and you also have those definitions like 5% or lower in terms of achievement: Franklin, Calvin Coolidge, Manual, Peoria High, Glen Oak, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Trewin. So then I also shared with you our graduation rates for the last 4 years, from 2015, 16, 17, 18. And you can see the trend. We are heading in the right direction. And you can see the states. And the state actually has a goal. It's like it says by 2032, they would like the graduation rate to be 90% or higher for the state of Illinois. So we all have to sort of chip in and assist our state in accomplishing that goal, which I think we can. I also throw in the student mobility information for you to see, and chronic absenteeism, and all of those are on our school report card. If you just Google Peoria Public Schools or any school, you will see that data. And so again, I wanted to provide some background to you. We have been working very hard, and very hard, and we're making progress. But overall, as a district, as a team, I would say, we want more. We're not satisfied. So this is what we know for sure, at least what I know, and I believe the current education framework actually impedes rather than facilitates as it relates to responding to the unique needs of our students. So our challenge must be to reinvent our work and to produce the outcomes that we want. We really have to think about doing things differently in a bold way. And for some of the, what are the outcomes? I mean, what do we really want? And, you know, we want every kid every child will be able to learn as much as he or she can, and based on their passion and interest, utilizing the skills and knowledge. I mean, that's really, you know, what we want. And I love this quote by John Dewey. It says, "If we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow." And that's some of the things that we're struggling with as, you know, as a district, as a system, as an educational framework. So again, I'm going to emphasize, and that will be a common theme throughout my presentation. As a district, we have an opportunity to really rethink and redesign our schools around individual students' interests, so that, you know, the learning is much more fun and much more relevant. And so what is the purpose of education? And we really need to think about that. And I would love for us as a district we need to move away from where we are to the idea that the purpose of school is to really help our students find their passion and interest. And again, the purpose is also focused around kids being engaged, to teach critical skills, to learn critical skills, and once they get that, to encourage them to be innovative and to be creative, while they're focusing on a career of interest and citizenship. So the purpose for me, I think we'll have a lot of fun, and everybody will be excited once we're able to get the idea that really our purpose is to help our kids find their passion and interest first, and then things will fall into place. I wanted to share some noteworthy statistics with you that I found. 53% of current college graduates are under or unemployed. This is like startling. Student engagement in school plummets as they get to higher grades, from 80% in elementary to just 40% at the beginning of high school. Another stat, just 11% of employers, yet 96% of academic provosts believe colleges are effective in preparing graduates for the workplace. The Lego Foundation studies reports that students lose more than 90% of their creativity or their creative capacity during their school years, and that's not good. And then Gallup found that college grads who had opportunities to apply classroom learning to internships and jobs or ambitious projects are twice as likely to be engaged in work later on in life. So we're heading in that direction in terms of the focus on internships and jobs and cool projects. So I wanted to share with you, actually this was my intro, and this is the new vision that I've been thinking about for quite some time. So I'm really happy to share that with you. So I would say right now the education framework overall in the U.S., it's really at a crossroads. And you can see my graphics this way, that way, or another way. So we are really at a crossroads. So I would like you to sort of reflect back on learning to ride a bicycle. Do you remember? How many of you remember learning to ride a bike? And so then, yeah. And so then compare that experience to learning to ride a bike at school. You know, just imagine, I just imagine we'd be lectured and we'd be assigned reading from bicycle textbooks, and we would have to memorize various bicycle terms. There might be some loss of confidence from misspelled words. You know, we'd have to take lots of standardized and multiple choice tests around learning to ride a bike, and so forth. We can go on. then, just like it is in school, you'd have to get accepted into an elite bicycle college, and you'd have to study the BAT test, which is the bicycle aptitude test. And, many of us would have to study at nights and weekends and summer preparing for this high stakes BAT test. And in the end, some would excel and some would struggle, but really none would get on a bike. And so that's the experience today. And this is true based on a book that I've read called Most Likely to Succeed by a guy by the name of Tony Wagner and another guy, Tim Dine. Thank you, Susan. But I love Tony, and I give Tony credit for it, but he does have another person who co-authored that book with him. And so I think about that and that type of experience. I hope you got it, right? Did you get it? The bicycle? Because actually, I used to just jump on a bicycle. Yeah. I jumped on the bike and I rode the bike. I fell. I got up, got back on, and it's just like roller skating. Those of us who've learned how to roller skate got on the skates. You skated, fell a million times, but eventually you became proficient at it by that. The engagement and the involvement and just being immersed in this experience. Then I also think about these 15 boys. I think last summer it was the headlines in the Journal Star, and the headline stated, sweeping federal indictment targets 15 suspected gang members, and they were all young and they were all African American males, and I knew some of them as little kids, and for the most part they were very good, and I often think about what happened. And so with the bike experience and then that, and like many public school systems, Peoria Public Schools, we also do take pride in, and that's our vision, educating, graduating, each student prepared and inspired. But somehow we continue the outcome continues to contribute to the tale of two cities, between the haves and the have-nots. And many of you remember that book, and that's what's continuing to happen. And I threw in the slide regarding confidence in public education, and we can see, how those numbers are continuing to decline. And so with all of that background, all of that information, you see where we are in terms of our designations, and we know what our vision, we have the vision in our mind. I would say this is really an opportunity. This is it's an opportunity for Peoria Public Schools. There's a broken system, and I would like to share with you 3 areas of focus that as it relates to preparing our young people for a bright future in a new way. And first of all, I do want to share with you the reality that we have to contend with, and then my vision, and then the action. And so the reality, I referenced the Harvard Graduate Report, and there's a zip code effect that we're all aware of, especially in our community. It's very glaring. And then the style of one size fits all. So the Harvard report, you can see it. You have it in front of you. It talks about the system for preparing young people to lead productive and prosperous lives as adults is clearly badly broken, and it also mentions how millions of young people, they arrive in their mid-20s either without a college degree or a route to a viable job. These are, the problems. My first year I talked about the wicked problems. I'm sure some of you remember. And those are the things we have to contend with, poverty and trauma and funding. And you heard Andrew Brown, Mr. Brown reference, what we have to deal with some of our children on a daily basis regarding trauma and their experiences. But those are some of the realities. That's, it's just a graphic I threw in there to show again, the zip code effect. So this is a one-size-fit-all graphic that I wanted to share. I mean, the big toe is nicely covered and probably is happy, but what about the other 8 toes? So this is just not working, right? So that's the problem. So the time is now, and it's time to explore, and it's time to change. As a district, I think we are in a good position to really, really change. We have been sort of cautious and cautious, and this is an opportunity to be really bold, and we're getting some green light, and we're getting some positive vibes from the state. Some of you, I've talked about even where the state is heading regarding what is an instructional day, and it's really cool to see where they're heading with that. And so the vision, so here's the vision. Everybody is a genius, and everyone has a true path, and our goal is, so the vision is, again, schools are places where students go to innovate and discover, and the adults are there to help them explore their talents and interests. And that is powerful, and that is huge, and that is not how we do things right now. So this will be a huge shift for us. Again, the vision is, what's the purpose of schools? Schools are places where students go to innovate, to discover, and the adults help them explore their talents and interests. And we will, in schools also operate in a culture of care. And then the last one, I love that one, where, and actually this is happening, I'm getting emails from parents who have not even advertised fully yet, but some parents are hearing, and they're sending emails about number 3, students having the option to accelerate and design their own learning schedule. I know Susan has an appointment with a parent. I know she had it today, but it's coming up. But it's all about that. So this is really, really exciting, and it kills this one-size-fit-all framework. This is a piece that I'm working on. I don't have a lot to say about that. Just to say that I believe technology and AI and machine learning really has a role in what we, in this idea around kids finding their passion and interest. We still have some work to do in that area, but it's really, really exciting regarding the possibilities. And then what will happen, though, the idea is educators would use the data. They would process the data to, again, continue to assist the kids in helping them to with their own talents and interests based on their activities and so forth. So again, the whole idea is to help kids find their dreams so that they can, they can chase their dreams. And so a big piece has to do with we have some structural things in place that they're embedded, and they're just deeply rooted and deeply seated in our framework, and it has to be somewhat shaken loose, and one of them is the teacher evaluation instrument, and I believe that many times it prohibits and prevents our teachers from being creative and willing to experiment. I've heard it and I've seen it, and because of the way that it's set up and the consequences. So an idea is, let's not evaluate teachers based on students' test scores, but in fact things like teachers' ability to, again, help kids find their passion and interest, where they're surveying kids, they're observing kids, they're having conversations with parents about students' strengths and weaknesses, and so forth. And then they're using that information to further develop students' interests so that they can nurture their talents and challenge their learning potential. So that's one big piece. Another piece is that report card. So the action would be to reframe, re-image the report card, and redesign the report card, redesign the teacher evaluation, and also understanding that schools can't do it alone, but our community can. And we're in a good place with that last piece. as Susan referenced and a couple of other people, Jan referenced, and Dr. Wood referenced, we have Align Peoria, we have quite a bit of individuals, hundreds of individuals from our community. They've just wrapped their arms around us, and they're just ready to go to work. You've seen in your weekly update on Friday the stats from, for example, the See It, Be It initiative, the K5 campaign. That amazing work is happening. Kids are going on field trips, speakers are coming into classrooms, and how many students are being impacted. It's just unbelievable. And kids are really excited. I know Lindbergh, they had an engineer who talked about artificial intelligence and robotics, and the kids wrote letters and to the speaker, and it was amazing what the kids said. They were just so fired up. So an example around report card, just reimagine the student's report card, where in fact it's organized by critical skills instead of subject matter. And so students would be assessed, for example, on skills. And so I just listed, I got these top 10 skills from Dr. Wilson, who attended a training, and she's like, hey, this is what we've been talking about for a couple of years now, and for the most part, those are also the 21st century skills. So how are kids doing with complex problem solving? How are kids doing with critical thinking? How are kids doing when it comes to being creative? People management skills, you know, their initiative, emotional intelligence, active listening, negotiation, effective oral and multimedia communication. So, and those are the things those are the skills that employers are looking for. And so, yeah, it's a huge shift, and I cannot wait for us to experiment with this idea, because this is, again, about how do we best prepare each one of our students for success. And you saw, I share with you, over the last 10 years, we're working hard on what we're getting, right? You see what we're getting, and we have nothing to lose. And so the direction would be, or the guide, or the platform would be through a personalized education, because different kids have different needs and different interests. So yeah, so that is that personalized piece, and there's been a lot of talk about it, but it's, again, how do you do it, and how do you do it well with some with integrity and some authenticity, because, as I said before, every kid has a true path, and it's, again, helping them to find that path so that they can create their own path. And we'll use all of these community resources, as I've mentioned, Align Peoria, because, you know, the U.S., look at I have on the screen, these are the world's biggest economies, right? There's United States, China, Japan, Germany, and so forth, and you're seeing $20.4 trillion, is that trillion? $1 trillion on the screen just in the U.S. And so, you know, I've just been thinking, are we prepared for this transformation? I hate to call it disruption, but it is, I'm talking about really transforming, and I believe when we do, we will be able to tell a different story, and where everyone, you know, every kid is excelling and accessing this the world's biggest economy. I mean, look at the little girl and the little boy. I mean, they're excited and they're ready to go. So I just added one more slide. You don't have that. I just added it today. And with a SMART goal that by 2023, a minimum of 10 of our 27 schools will be reimagined to be a place where students go to innovate and discover, and the adults are helping them nurture their talents and passion. And kids, again, are able to accelerate and design their own schedule, some of them who would like to do that. We have the opportunity to change our community in the work that we do. Coach, you may recognize that. and we're beginning now. You know, Mr. Knapp, I'll just say quickly as I close, referenced Woodruff, and an idea would be Woodruff could become, you know, one of our a high school that is our career technical high school, Susan, our competency-based high school, where kids are attending there full-time. And that's an idea, and I'm also looking at the athletics, doing something for our primary kids and our middle school students. We're not doing enough to build that high school pipeline, so that's also an area that will be, you'll see some changes for the upcoming 2019-2020 school year. And then there's also thoughts around fine arts and maybe some merger around that. But there's still a lot of work there. But there are quite a bit of opportunities for us as a district, and I'm really excited. So I will, Mr. President, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Crott. I guess I'll just kick it off. For my part, I really do appreciate the passion and the vision, and I think you're right that the time is definitely now. Can you talk to us a little bit about how do you take that vision and facilitate transforming it into kind of the actionable plan that the teachers and the everyday staff will see start to come to fruition?
Thank you. So lots of conversations for sure, and this, so the timeline that I've just drafted in my head, so 2019, 2020, we'll start with one school. They're already on board, teachers are on board, administrators on board, our union is on board. We talked about it last week, and they said, hey, we can't start soon enough. And so the board members that have spoken individually, the community, and those are also feedback that I'm getting from our community. So number one, lots of conversation to sort of make sure we're all philosophically on the same page, and I have not yet gotten one person to say, no, you're crazy. And number two, there's a lot of work, so we're starting small, right, and we'll pilot this idea. And I can share with you, for example, what we're doing at Mark Bill's, and actually even have Susan help me out. Dr. Gershnich, you want to? So, one for each board member, I'm sorry. Yeah, I can help.
It's a big plan.
So the Mark Bills plan focuses on student interest, then career interest, and problem-based learning. And the idea is that we get to know the students very well and what their interests are. And we also know middle school students, their interests change from time to time. So I've witnessed it as a teacher. And so it's a very fluid type of a learning process that the students will be a part of. And a big component of this is connecting to community and making sure we have community mentors to support the students as they do the learning. And if you look at the box that says big understandings, that's the work we're doing right now through the teacher development process. Our teachers are building the nuts and bolts of this plan. This is not a box that we're just handing them and saying, do this, please. They really are in the development phase, and Dr. Crott keeps saying, I want to see the details, I want to see the details, and I have to say to her, we're building it. So it's not just done. It's something that, in order for it to be rich and authentic and have a life of its own, the teachers have to be part of the design process. And they are. They're doing a great job. We're working on facilitated learning right now and passing more of the learning processes to the students so that they're doing the work.
And then we move into student voice or student agency, where the students make more of the decisions. So it is a process that we're going through, and we're trying to figure out also how to capture it so that we can replicate it.
So there's no prototype, right? So this is really exciting. This is just a draft, and I envision, for example, it will vary from school to school. So not cookie cutter, and we're excited. We'll need a flow chart, and I envision, for example, I was talking to Susan, Dr. G, and Dr. Wilson last week, and we're always talking about this because we're building this and designing this, and maybe we might be able to patent it too. But like identifying your kids that are site-based, your kids that are work-based, your kids that are virtual kids, your kids that are
A little bit of everything.
You name it, and kids that just want to create their own. And so again, it will be a different framework.
The day might look different. We've been talking with the teachers about not thinking about how we currently schedule, how we currently organize, and how all that could look differently as well based on the students' needs.
Yeah, and that's and the state has assisted us with the new definition of the instructional day, which is pretty cool. Do you remember that?
The outgrowth of the competency-based pilot we've been a part of for the past 2 years.
And it's learning can take place, anytime, anywhere. It doesn't have to be seat time, which is amazing. It could be Friday, it could be Saturday, it could be Sunday night.
And we're not constrained to brick and mortar.
And we're not constrained to brick and mortar, exactly.
Yeah. Mrs. Ross, you had a question?
I did have a quick question. Even though you initially want to start with this school, are you offering opportunities to other schools to come up with innovative ideas so that they may be able to start piloting themselves into this?
Sure, and so then the following year it would be 3 schools, and the following year would be 3, and then the following year by 2020 we'll have all 10 schools. Susan, do you have?
Sure. So Dr. Wood and Mrs. Seipel and I are co-chairing a personalized learning team that will include teachers from across the district. That will also be a part of feeding into this process and then building the culture of being innovative and doing things differently across the district as well. And so we're pretty excited about the possibilities of the teacher input team for that, and administrators will be a part of that too.
But my question was, with the opportunity for, say, any principal who wanted to start, looking at getting people, their teachers on board, and the concept, bought into. Can they do that?
Yes, Mrs. Ross.
So it could be more than 10.
It could be more than 10, or it could happen. It could happen quicker. Actually, we bought the book Most Likely to Succeed, and there were 7 principals who took. I had 7. They took it quickly, and they were very, very interested. And they're going to go through it. It's all about kids' passion and interest, doing things differently. And so there's actually a lot of excitement, and we could have more than one.
Because it kind of aligns with competency base as well.
Exactly.
And I know some schools were really excited about that.
We're actually going to do a school visit here next month to a district that's doing competency-based learning in their K through 8 program. So we're going to go steal some ideas.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add anything? And Dr. Wilson, you've been involved, Dr. Wood, because I've been sort of picking your brains and running things past the team. Anything? Are we missing anything?
The principals do share best practices at all the principals meetings too, so they are constantly learning from one another.
And primarily I'm looking at middle and high, because you saw the data on the engagement at the primary school, and Dr. Wood is doing some amazing work with the community around, and actually Dr. Wilson, around every kid being able to read at grade level or higher by the end of 3rd grade. And at some point we'll give you a report on that, but that's really exciting.
Ms. Jackson.
Mrs. Jackson?
I'm excited about what's happening in the district. And if I'm not mistaken, this is something that when we had our meeting, Dr. Karat, that I talked about and with our schools. And excited to know that you never told me that this was what you had already been thinking about and doing. I'm excited because I think that when we talk about middle schools and we talk about athletics and getting them involved, it has a real impact on academics, attendance, and attitude. I just believe that discipline can really be dealt with some things that we don't do a lot of. And excited about you thinking about Woodruff. I've always thought about that school and how we're using it and looking at how we can make it better than what it was, but what it was, if that makes any sense to anybody. So I am excited. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And you hear me say all the time, we just have to have all the right people in the right places. And I think we're headed that way. And I can see a change coming regarding academics, attitude, and attendance. And it's going to be a real exciting times. You call it remarkable times. I'm calling it exciting times in our district. And I just want to thank you and all the people that are working with you, that are making a change, not only with our students, but giving our teachers the opportunity to work outside the box and do some things that in one class that doesn't work in another class, but being able to do it, and your kids are learning and being productive citizens, and I just really appreciate that.
Thank you. And Susan is the Director of Innovation, so we work very closely together, and she helps with the idea. She takes the vision, and she'll work with the team, and that the devil is in the details, right? And so that's, yeah, but you're right, there's definitely huge opportunities in athletics for us, especially at the primary and middle school level, and also at Woodruff. Amazing opportunities. So it's just a matter of, you know, and I was inspired by the Mark Bill's teachers, Susan. We went and spoke with them. When was it? I don't even remember.
Beginning of October, and then we went back at the end of October.
Yeah, and I mean, they were willing to be compliant, but I didn't get a sense of excitement and fun. And I went back and I said, Susan, and we talked and we spoke with Miss Rogers, and we were like, why not? And then they were
very excited when they heard about the 3 categories there.
The interest, career focus, and problem solving, and yeah, so.
Very good. Mrs. Rossi.
I just had one more comment. You know, I've always said that we need to tell our own story. And I was excited that I had really a Peoria police officer tell me that he was telling someone else he took his kids out of Christ Lutheran and put them back in the district. He says, why should I pay for something that the district is doing, and I didn't know they were doing such a great job at it. So, you know, we have to tell our own story. People don't know what's offered in our schools. Yeah. And I think that this is an opportunity to get some of those homeschoolers back here and to keep some of the people that we might be losing because we are being more innovative.
We hired our director of PR and community engagement, and he's a local young man from Peoria, and he's amazing already, and he's a perfect fit. And that's Mr. Brook, and he's going to help us market all of the great things that we're doing. The virtual work that you heard about and that you've just referenced, parents are going to love it, kids are going to love it, and then we'll also share with you at some point the 2 Degrees initiative, where our juniors can, you know, go into Illinois Central College and become full-time students as juniors and seniors, and upon graduation, they'll put 2 years in at ICC, and upon completion, they'll not only have an associate's degree, but they'll also have their high school diploma. So you'll hear a little bit more about that in a couple of months. but we're excited about that also.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Susan.
All right, next up on our agenda is presentations by audience. I will forego the speech. We welcome your comments and appreciate your input. It's important. First up, I have Ms. Sharon Cruz.
Well, I have to bring us back to today for right now, so please refer to the handout I gave you. The administration at the November 13th meeting and in an email still insists that all the 17s in place of grades for manual and Peoria High English grades indicate withdrawals. I continue to believe that some of the 17s replaced grades, probably A's. The number 17 was used for 3 different reasons: to indicate the dates of withdrawal during the semester, 2, to indicate that the student withdrew on the last day of a semester. This would rarely, if ever, happen. 3, to indicate a student withdrew to transfer to another course or to change to the same course at a different time. I didn't record those 17s. They're transfers, not withdrawals. Board members, do you find it believable that according to the administration's contention, 25 seniors withdrew at manual, withdrew on the last day of the first semester, then the same seniors, same ID, returned after Christmas break to enroll in the second semester of the course? You follow the red lines across. Then 22 of these same seniors withdrew on the last day of second semester. 2 withdrawals from the same course with no grades. English is a requirement, so they didn't graduate, right? I taught seniors for over 10 years. Nothing like that ever happened with even one senior. Now I'm to believe that at least 22 seniors withdrew on the last day of both semesters. Please tell me how that saga is believable. I found it even more unbelievable because 14 of these supposed withdrawals were from AP classes. If indeed these students all withdrew from these courses, and probably from manual, then the administration needs to provide reasons why so many seniors withdrew or were dropped, and thus did not graduate. The administration's version of the truth requires much more explaining than does my version. 2 seniors enrolled in English 4 received passing grades for first semester, but got a 17 instead for a grade for second semester. What is your guess? Did they withdraw second semester and not graduate, or get an A and graduated? Second semester, 10 students enrolled in a course called ELA Test Preparation. 6 of those students withdrew in April. The remaining 4 students received the mystery 17s, and the only 4 left. And did the only 4 left in the class withdraw or get A's? Second semester, mostly the same 10 students enrolled in a course called Writing Test Preparation. 7 withdrew in April. The remaining 3 received the mystery 17s. Did they withdraw or get A's? Without counting the mystery 17s, 91 students withdrew from English classes first semester and 117 second semester. What is happening at manual and why? And the solution has to probably come long before all of your plans come to fruition. So those are some kids that need some attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Terry Knapp.
Yes, and I like Dr. Kraut's presentation. I would focus on one word in particular that she used, and that's mobility. We have talked about mobility. I talked with Mr. Booth about it, and I love his word trauma, as we talked about the traumatization of students that were removed from Woodruff and bused all over creation. Those kids were all traumatized, 900 of them, as we said before. But more importantly, mobility. I've mentioned this. I met with Roger John from Peoria Housing Authority several years ago. Obviously, if you know Roger John, that's been a long time ago. But I met with Jerry Brady and Senator Chuck Weaver on these very same topics of mobility. And I've told you here before that until we get the PHA, Peoria Housing Authority, and Section 8 housing on board with not transferring these students during the school year. We have some students that attend 8 grade schools in 8 years. They come and go in the middle of the year. Their teachers and the students in those classes really give them a feeling that they're not wanted because they're kind of disruptive moving in and out. It's not their fault, obviously, so they feel traumatized by it, as well as the students and the teachers that are receiving them. Until we can get Ben Carson, and I talked with Mr. Booth, and he was going to talk to his wife, who is in the legislature in Illinois. We need to get national attention to this and say, we don't want these kids moved during the 9 months of school. We want any transition of residents to take place in the summertime, not in the middle of the school year, in October or November or December or January. Until you get that straightened out, the rest is just pie in the sky. We have an inordinate number of students in this city that are transferred because of Section 8 or Peoria Housing Authority problems. And they say basically, we can't do anything about it, we're not going to adjust our schedule. Well, until they adjust their schedule for our students, and we keep saying that it takes a community to raise a child, if we're not going to do this, then these students are going to constantly be traumatized and constantly be behind. I wanted to mention about busing again. Going back to the old conference when we had the Mid-State 10, the Mid-State 9, the Mid-State 8, the Mid-State 6, now we have the Mid-State nothing because we're in the Big 12. And we got to drive to Danville, 120 miles away, and drive home. Some of the girls are playing at Danville during the week, 120 miles one way, 120 miles home. And then you look at Normal West, they have this traumatic bus crash with a semi on the interstate, and fortunately, miraculously, the girls were not killed. I don't know if they had seat belts on or not. I think that that whatever First Bus Drivers First or whatever it is, the company, they wear seat belts. I think. I don't think our kids even have seat belts. You know, and we sent them all over creation. Now the state just had meetings, and I don't know what the district voted on this, but they just had meetings on localizing regional people and groups of schools closest together to play close together so you don't have to spend all your money on buses and gas and safety problems in the middle of the wintertime. I mean, this is really a problem. Now, I don't know if they voted that down. They just voted this week. We voted this week. I don't know how you guys voted, but we voted whether or not to go with the state's recommendation to centralize conferences rather than allowing schools to have their own conferences and again, you know, bus 120 miles to Danville and be in that conference, or go to 3 or 4 schools in Champaign 90 miles away. That makes no sense. Makes no sense economically, bus safety, nothing. You know, but yet we do it. You know, and that's unfortunate. Maybe the state will take that out of our hands. Hopefully they will. Again, I want to thank you all for your kindness, and when Sharon Cruz sits here and talks to you, I can actually see you listening. The previous board with Dr. Lathan, they didn't listen to anything. I'm sorry, Ms. Ross, you were on that board. You know, you listened to nothing. You know, it was one group, and you all were just, you couldn't hold her hand hard enough. You know, Dr. Butler couldn't hold her hand hard enough. I went down to the city council meeting and watched them make fools of themselves, ripping on John Meisinger and the previous principal from Manual in the city council meeting when they were talking about grades. This school district was out of control. thank you for bringing it back to realism.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Any response to audience presentations, Dr. Crow?
I'd like to say something.
I'm going to take the floor first. Mr. Knapp, thank you for the recommendation with regards to the PHA and the mobility in the middle of the school year. I agree with you. That's a big issue, and we should be partnering to cut that out. Any kind of disruptions we're creating as adults for lack of logistics or whatever, I think that's definitely should be a high target. And so I'm going to investigate and try to help do what I can. I also agree with you 100% on the athletic conferences. I think I annoyed several athletic directors in our district last year asking lots of questions about why we couldn't change it. I definitely did.
He did.
And yeah,
He's whipping it again.
Yeah, if the state can make it easier to do, all the better. But it's a very unfortunately difficult process to go through. And the people that tried to facilitate getting a more localized conference last time were very frustrated from not being able to move the dial. But I agree as well. It's something we should revisit.
I had something.
I had Dr. Brown first.
I'd like a response. This is the second time that Ms. Cruz has been here talking to us about concerns with grades at our high schools. And this is a lot to go through, so I really can't address it knowledgeably. But based on what I can gather, there are things that concern me. Could we have a response to this by our next board meeting, and perhaps you can help us make sense out of this from your side of it?
Absolutely. The team, they've been working with Mrs. Cruz, and so I'll have Mr. Welch give you a report on.
Thank you.
You absolutely.
Mrs. Ross.
Okay. First of all, I think I brought a proposal some years ago about how we could virtually eliminate mobility, and that was wherever the child started, whatever school they start in, they stay in. And I don't know if we have to have national, federal to do that. I think I was told that it's costly as far as transportation. But there are some areas that if you start in a school, you have to stay in that school all year, no matter where you move. So that, to me, the logistics of it may be hard, but I think that proposal is on the table and has been on the table for quite a few years. And just to set the record straight, Mr. Knapp, I think when you say we didn't listen, the previous board, and my record would show that I was listening, and I was not part of that fiasco that you talked about.
That's why you're still on the board.
All right. Any other responses? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 26, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Dr. Davidson Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have proposed expenditures over $2,500. Any questions for Mr. Willis on that list? Seeing none. Report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act.
Thank you, President Adler. Since the last board meeting on November 26, we received 2 new requests. There were no pending requests noted on November 26. We have received 46 requests for this calendar year at a cost of $1,150. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw, would you read the consent agenda for us?
Yes, Mr. Adler, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Item number 1, gifts to the school district. This meeting, $4,975.86. Year-to-date, $49,685.09. Item number 2, payment of bills. Item number 3, payment for travel. Item number 4, human resources report. Item number 5, field trip approval, Richwoods High School wrestling team to Lincoln, Illinois. Item number 6, field trip approval, Richwoods High School soccer team to Burlington, Iowa. Item number 7, Washington Gifted 7th and 8th grade class trip. Item number 8, license agreement with OSF Healthcare System. Item number 9, award of special needs bus bid. Item number 10, temporary approval and payment of bills. Item number 11, abate taxes on the general obligation school bonds, alternate revenue source, Series 2017, and transfer county schools facility sales tax revenue to debt service fund. Item number 12, abate taxes on the taxable general obligation school bonds, alternate revenue source, Series 27B, qualified zone academy bonds, and transfer school facility sales tax revenue to debt service fund. Item number 13, property tax relief grant application. Item number 14, property tax levy, and that is the entirety of the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Are there any items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda for separate vote? All right, seeing none, then I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the entirety of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the individual items within the consent agenda?
I have one question on item 13. What is the property tax relief grant application?
Mr. Wilson.
That's actually a grant that the state started when the evidence-based funding formula change occurred. It's a grant that provides school districts who have high tax rates compared to other school districts. It provides them an opportunity to lower their property tax burden with local taxpayers. And that grant actually, with that grant, the state actually replaces some of the tax money locally with state monies. There's a $50 million pot set aside for those grants. Districts across the state of Illinois must submit those grant applications by January 7th. We would not find out if we were actually an awardee of the grant till the end of January. But in order for us to be in the mix for the grant, we've got to apply, which we're asking that you allow us to do. It's a function of other districts applying and where our tax rate is compared to their tax rate, how many districts applied, funding that, you know, the maximum funds that they're eligible for. So there are lots of moving parts that will determine whether or not we get it. Okay. But it all starts with us applying, which we're asking you to do tonight.
And that's what I was going to say, because depending on this grant, potential savings to the public in property taxes would be what percentage you think? Just a guess, I know, because you don't know how much you would get.
Yeah, we're filing the application for 13.7 million. So that would be almost like a 15 to 18% savings.
Savings to the public, to
something.
The taxpayers.
If we were to get a grant that's equal to what we're eligible for.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's clear. Thank you.
And Mr. Wills, how does the mechanics work of that if we were to be awarded how would, since we're passing the tax levy tonight, we retroactively, how does that work?
There's actually, if we were to be awarded the grant, we would actually come back before you and do an abatement similar to what we did with county school facility sales tax. And that process would occur in the spring. And as long as we have it done by April, before tax bills get set out, we'll be fine.
Okay, very good.
So it's an abatement or amendment?
It would actually be an abatement.
Abatement, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw, you're going to handle number 15.
Yes, I move that we table item number 15 on the deliberation agenda, which is the superintendent employment contract.
Second.
All right.
Tape?
Table.
Okay.
Did you say the date or? Yeah.
Tuesday, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do I need to restate or?
As long as the motion or seconder are okay with the friendly amendment.
Second, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's friendly.
Okay, very well.
Okay. Mrs. Ross?
I don't think you need to vote on the table, but aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Presentations and suggestions by board members. Ms. Ross.
I don't have a presentation, but I gave you a little Christmas gift.
Oh.
And I wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wondered who Santa was.
Any other presentations or suggestions by board members?
I don't have any presentations or suggestions. I have a question. I got the report regarding the minority participation on the money being spent on refurbishing our schools. On the Richwoods contract that put the seats in the auditorium,
Yes.
it says minority participation 100%. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct?
I asked the question as well when I saw it.
Well,
Yes.
you know, it's something that you it's
Unusual.
I want to say that, but, you know, there it is. So I want to make sure that what I was reading was correct.
Yeah.
Huh?
I thought I misread the report when I first saw it, so I called the company and we had a long conversation about it. It's good.
Okay, all right. Then I won't think about it anymore.
Very good. Mr. Walter.
Yeah, just a little bit of a report. I was fortunate enough to be part of a meeting that we had here last week on solar committee. We've continued to pursue some avenues where we can have other groups invest in solar in the district that would be to our benefit. And we've got 2 schools set up for that. We're looking at some other ones now. Mr. Willis and some of the other folks, we met and had a very interesting discussion with some people who've done some work with us here locally. And so just want to let you know, we're still pursuing that green dream of making things, good for us. And I think it's a thing that could be a win-win for a lot of our schools that we're going on. So we're still pursuing it. And so I want to thank Mr. Willis and the rest of the team that we talked to these folks about that.
Very good. Reports from board committees. Mr. Shaw.
The policy committee will meet Thursday, December 20th at 3:30 p.m.
The Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee met, and we're excited about some initiatives that we're looking at. Our charge is to look at, from the state statute again, is to look at discipline and how we can reduce the incidence of discipline in the schools and on buses. And so we're looking at some different ideas. First, we are analyzing the data from the last school year on which infraction caused the most problems. And so we'll look at addressing some of those at our January 10th meeting. Next meeting is January 10th, which we will have some more definitive information to tell people about.
Isn't our meeting scheduled for next
December
week?
20th at 9.
Pardon?
December 20th
I thought it
at
was
9 a.m.
20th, okay. At 9.
December 20th.
That's the building.
The special committee on school start times will meet this Thursday, December 13th at
4:30.
4:30. Yep, and we'll have a report back next time. Yes, Thursday.
It'd be interesting to know about that as it relates to the new focus. Right?
Anything else for the good of the board and the public? Seeing none, we are adjourned.